Maybe we can just turn this up. Maybe we're just talking quieter now that. Testing. Oh, I see it now. Yeah, seems good. Jess Heberly said, "Hey, sound isn't working, frowny face." Is it working now, Jess? Can you hear us now? If someone could please text or Twitter me. I mean, actually, if sound's not working, how are you going to do that? I'll text her. I'm with a bunch of friends at John Payne in the middle of Washington for like a couple of days.
That's awesome. Weird.
Yeah, because
how did you know that they were? Did he like?
I ran into him right before leaving town, and he said if I was going through Central Washington to tell him because he has friends there. And I was parked on the top of a rocky mountain in Idaho. And I remembered that because I was going to be going through Washington. So I texted him, and he emailed all his friends and gave me addresses. And I ended up just like kind of living at this guy's house for 3 days with his like elderly dog and his wife. And it was awesome. And then after I spent like day in and out with this guy for 3 days, he's like, "So how long have you known John?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of only hung out with him a couple of hours, really." And he was like, "What?"
Did you go to the mattress factory while you were in town?
The mattress factory in
here? Yeah.
No, why? There's something good in there.
John has a pretty cool looking piece up. I haven't made it to see it in person. I've just seen photos of it everywhere. And I was going to go there today and just didn't have time. It comes back to that thing of like, I'm just never leaving the house anymore.
Yeah, right?
But he made these gigantic word balloons, and they're all propped up. I don't know. It's pretty interesting looking from what I've seen.
When I was in Central Washington, in this small town, I ended up hanging out with this guy who had fallen off a tall ladder while building a barn. And he was in a coma, and they didn't think he would walk again, but he did. And they didn't think he would talk again, and he does, but he has a lot of trouble with it, especially when he's uncomfortable with it. When he has a couple of beers in him, he's like, he does better, honestly. And he's a writer. He's an English professor, retired English professor, but he can't read anymore. But he started drawing, and drawing is like the one thing that he, was never good at. So now he's better at it than he was before he fell.
That's so bizarre.
It is bizarre. And the weirdest part is he told me that if there's anything that happened that was good from falling off the ladder, and he thinks there is that he no longer experiences time, he says. It's like he thinks he's kind of like the way he imagines his Labrador is, where it's like, how when you're really in the zone doing something and like you don't really pay attention to to time going by. He says that that's the way his life is at all times now.
So is he late for everything then?
Yeah, unless his wife brings him, or he never shows up to stuff. He'll just when we were having a conversation, I had to be like, "All right, no, we got to go." He was just in it.
I guess that's good.
Yeah, I mean, he's it's not. He enjoys it. I feel like a lot of people, especially in the arts, are chasing that feeling, kind of. That feeling of losing track of time. Oh yeah, and I got in touch for maybe volunteering at 826 Valencia too on Mount Portland.
That seems like that would be pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah, just trying to keep doing anything while I'm living in a van is That's why I'm like doing this as just like a little mini about being in Portland or whatever.
How different has that been than whatever you expected it to be? Living in the van.
It's a lot different. Like, you know, I didn't expect a lot, I guess. I was just really scared of the idea of doing it and kind of knew I kind of wanted to do it and then try not to think about it and just went for it. But it's a lot less intimidating than I thought. I really thought I was going to have been hassled by cops already and stuff. And, you know, I'm pretty discreet and I am like fortunate enough to be able to like have places I can get showers and friends and stuff, and I have money to afford coffee and stuff. Like, so it's not like I'm destitute. So that's really hasn't been much of a problem at all. And then yeah, finding like sleeping and being comfortable hasn't been a problem at all because you just park anywhere you would park a car. And it's fine. People aren't like going around knocking on your windows or something. But yeah, like I guess as far as
Walmart used to like they used to allow people to park in their lots.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know, they might still do that.
I think so, but like honestly, that seems like a terrible place to park to me because it'd just be uncomfortable because it'd be very obvious what you're doing. Well, if you park someplace where maybe it's illegal to do that, like a city, at least you don't stand out. And like once you live in a car, you start noticing everyone that lives in cars around you. But I don't think most humans pay attention or care that much. Also, you start realizing tons of people have lived in their cars. Like I was talking to this guy. I was in Seattle, and this dude was there with his son, and his son was just super stoked to have Ed draw in the back of Hip Hop Family Tree for him. And this guy was like, had bought like 6 copies because he keeps bringing them to school and his friends borrow them and never return them or something. And but he, you know, he's older, but he looked a lot like me. He had the same glasses as me. And I was talking to him and telling him what I was doing. And he was just like really excited to hear about it. He's smiling bigger and bigger. And it turned out he had lived in his van for 6 years and was a writer too, and kind of still is, I guess. But he's a contractor to make money for, you know, raise his kid or whatever. And he said, you know, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but every small town has a University Avenue. There's good food there. And if you go to a gym and say, hey, I'm thinking of moving here, do you have a free trial membership? Do you have a place to shower and work out?
That's pretty good. There must be a million zines about living on the road and tricks like that, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there are, you know, and there's also websites, like van life websites, and some of them are just like beautiful vans that people have made look amazing and stuff. Yeah, and that's why people are always asking me if what I'm like writing while I'm on the road is about me being on the road. I'm kind of like, no, I feel like that's overdone. Like, I mean, I don't know what I have to add to that conversation. Not that giant fighting robots aren't overdone, but that's just what I feel like working on. So that's what my next book is about, giant fighting robots, I guess. And I was having this conversation where it's like, I'm always trying to like shy away from some of the stuff I love the most. I was thinking, did you see Pacific Rim?
Yeah.
It's like, I loved Pacific Rim. And I love Waterworld. And I love like really intense, over the top, you know, movies where the bad guys smoke cigarettes. And that's just
like
the way
the
it is.
Black hat.
Yeah, right. And then I'm just thinking, is like, if I saw Pacific Rim or something very similar drawn by me, I would love it. And why am I always like being like, no, I don't know. Like I kind of thinking, well, what would be the only thing that no one's done in fighting robot narratives yet? It's like, well, the robots never fight. And so I'm kind of thinking of doing a story where the robots never actually end up fighting in the whole story. But then the other part of me is like, I totally want to see the robots.
Yeah, what's the point of doing giant robot fighting comics if the giant robots aren't fighting?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It would be kind of funny to do giant robot comics that aren't built for fighting, that just do like construction or whatever.
Yeah.
They're just like tools.
Yeah, and then people get in fights anyway?
No fighting at all.
Okay.
It's just them like completing a task, like working in a stone quarry.
Yeah.
It'd be the worst. It'd be the best manga. They're like 2,000 pages of them just loading dump trucks and chiseling away at cliffs.
you end up making Sweet Angel older?
She's maybe a year older, but nothing too dramatic. It's funny you mentioned giant robots. We have a giant robot story.
Good.
Percolating. It probably will never happen, but we meet every week and just go over various stories that are in development.
Yeah, that's awesome to have someone to be doing that with.
Yeah, it's good. I have to step away for a minute.
Okay.
I'll try not to kick all these cords over.
Yeah. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to tweet me at CyberpunkDan, and I'll answer them. Jim will answer them.
I can leave this here while I'm stepping away. This is like this is real hardcore me making comics.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do some lettering next.
Oh, cool. Yeah, just how Release says, the audio is in fact working again.
Yay, audio.
And says, please get a shot of Jim's cats at the end. Thanks. Man, this is really awesome. Thanks for doing this. Nice to not feel lonely while I'm painting. Oh yeah, and Jess, you should send us a picture. If anyone has a picture of whatever they're working on while we're working on this stuff, send it to me when it's over. If you want.
My pencils are so light it's invisible.
Yeah. I was gonna also, I think, when this is all over, like when we're winding down, just kind of pan around so people can see your studio.
Yeah, I can show everybody my wound.
Oh
I
yeah.
almost had to cancel because of cut my finger. I might have already told you this. I just leave this document open that we write in. So we're constantly updating it. But then I just go from here to because I'll do my layouts over here very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing document. We're constantly updating it.
It's like Google Drive.
Yeah.
And so if he updates something after you've already penciled it, you're like, what?
I'll come back to it. I'm not, I'm trying to avoid getting stuck on one page.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so does that mean you're bouncing around in the narrative as you draw? Or whatever?
No. I start on page 1, but I'm not going to redraw, page 3 over and over. I draw it once and then moving on until I'm done. And once I'm done, then I'll go back and,
okay, that
probably redraw some stuff.
You know, one thing I thought I was going to do on the road, and I guess I still could start, was just doing more sketchbook stuff, like drawing real life things. But I guess I'm so much more interested in storytelling that I find it like, I like beautiful drawings, but if it's not in a story, I kind of feel like it's a waste of time almost to me. I don't know. But I think that'd be good for me for sure.
I find drawing enjoyable, like for any purpose.
Okay, yeah.
This is old school stuff.
Oh yeah, I just found one of those in my
Ames
room.
lettering guide.
Yeah, I want to see you use this because I'm going to start for the first time. Can you explain what you're doing for me?
Yeah, I'm just figuring out where I'm lettering. So, this is a very odd page. I'll probably end up redrawing this whole thing, is my guess. So you adjust the size. You can roll this, to make it bigger or smaller. It increases the space by changing the angle of these. And then those dots are just for your pencil lead, and you just run it along a straight edge. And that's basically your...
Yeah. And you can make a bunch of lines in a row. How many? It's like 6 or something.
Yeah, you can make a lot, probably 12, I'm guessing. So, you make the space. It kind of depends on, I think, a variety of factors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a very archaic tool.
Yeah, I think that will be much improved the way my current project looks. The hand-drawn book. Handwritten book.
Do you do computer lettering?
I'm not going to for this. I mean, I never in comics do. My first book about Billy Wright, it's just the computer, all the text, and then all the comic lettering is hand lettered. My handwriting has changed a whole lot since I've been caring about what it looks like on a regular basis for a number of years now. My ex just looked at my handwriting and was like, "Who wrote this?"
Really?
Yeah. It's like, you write like a girl. It's like, okay. Seems an improvement because it used to be illegible. I don't know what that means exactly. I guess feminine writing is often small and clean, is that maybe?
No, I always think of oh man, I don't want to start talking about
What, like
judging,
gendered writing, yeah.
Who writes what. Natalie writes very large. And so I often give her a hard time about that.
I remember once we were talking about that when I was just first starting stuff, like when I had met you at Copacetic, about lettering and how I felt like my writing looked terrible. And you said that maybe it was like hearing your own voice, because it seems like a lot of people think their own lettering looks bad. I don't know. If you could see any other comic artist working right now, working in their studio, who would it be?
I don't know. I saw a video of Frank Quitely. It was like a little documentary on him. Do you know him? He's a superhero artist. But they were showing him working, and they showed a studio, and it was just like whatever you'd expect. But it almost totally focused on his layouts. and it would just show his sketchbooks, and there would be like 20 pages of layouts on each page, like little 2-inch rectangles.
Yeah.
Completely full. It was really cool looking.
Huh.
I do really like pencils, so has to be like the worst thing for anybody to watch.
Yeah, well, you also did, so you do a blue pencil and then a dark pencil, and you light box a lighter pencil, and then you ink it after that.
Yeah. That's only what I've been doing on this book. So, that may not last. That might be very temporary.
So it seems like a lot of process,
It is a lot of process, but it's also very forgiving, and it's very loose.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to have that freedom to like change up layouts and not think, oh, I'm going to erase this thing and move it a quarter of an inch or something. Like, because I'm light boxing it, I can just slide everything around.
When you do your ballpoint pen stuff, are you light boxing that?
It really depends. Some of the drawings I do, like I always do preliminary drawings for those because you just can't do any sketching.
Yeah.
But then depending on the drawing itself, like sometimes I'll redraw it and just look at that reference, or I'll light box a little bit very lightly.
We have a question wondering how many hours a day you put in the studio, do you think? You probably have an exact number.
Yeah, well, I don't have an exact number, although I do write down like time. Like I can tell you my SVA stuff daily. I keep a log for that. I probably spend between 10 and 14 hours a day in here.
Yeah.
So, it depends on a lot of stuff. If something's due, or if my wife works late one night. So like that day I work like 14 hours easily.
Yeah.
But if she's around, I try not to be too out of hand.
Yeah, I was asked that question too. Jess was asking, and I guess I don't know I don't have a studio. I live in a van right now. I work at least a little bit every day, because I feel like if I don't do that, it'll just get away from me completely when I'm working on it, and it's so hard to get. Actually, it's worse than hard to get back into it for me, because if I let it go too long, I always start from the very beginning of the book, right? So I'm trying to write a 200-page novel, and I've gotten to page 40, and I let it go. Next time I start the book, it'll be at page 1. So yeah, right now it's just a little bit. But when I was doing Top of the Line, it was like, depending, probably get closer to 8 hours or longer. Yeah, something more like that.
I take Sundays off, and that can be hard sometimes. Like it took me a year of trying to take one day a week off before I actually started taking one day a week off. And I think it's very beneficial for me to do that. It changes the way I look at time. So, like suddenly each week has something of a cap.
Yeah.
Like as Saturday starts to roll on, it's kind of like, oh man, if I don't get this done now, it's just not getting done this week.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty interesting, but yeah, your point of like working every day, I do notice that layoff. Like Monday it's harder to get rolling than it will be on like a Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I also totally let the ball drop for almost a month when I was in Butte. I was not working every day, and when I came back to working, it was different and slower, but also really good. I feel like I felt very comfortable giving myself that time, because I wasn't sure, honestly, that I wanted to do this with my life. There are plenty of good things to do, and I had like finished another big project. I wanted to stop and think about it. And then I was like, yeah, I do. I guess. Seems good.
I think I'm totally blocking the camera now. I'm actually using ink.
Yeah.
This is whenever it starts to look better.
So people can see you work.
You don't need to do that.
I don't need to.
Because I'm using all ink from this point on, so. Normally I would take this up whenever I'm doing lettering, but usually I don't have a lot of captions, so the captions are straight. So I want to leave it taped down until I'm done with this, so then I can roll off all the straight lines. But normally it's like a word balloon. and I use French curves for those. So like I can just move the paper.
Okay, so wait,
which makes lettering easier.
When you have your French curves, then you have that on a straight edge and you move the paper under it, or what? You just hold it?
No, with the French curves, I don't use a straight edge. Like the French curves
is the straight edge, yeah. Or is the unstraight edge, whatever. It's the edge. I mean, like, I think this is important because there's all these basic tools that.
Can't tell if I'm on there or not.
Yeah, you're in the bottom right corner.
I don't think these tools are right. Like, I'm planning to do an issue all digitally.
Mm-hmm.
These tools are just what I've, kind of came up using.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like they're any better than any other tools. They're just tools that I'm comfortable with.
But sometimes, like, knowing what things people feel that they need a tool for, other than, like, I mean, sometimes you look at someone's work and you just, like, especially when you don't have a background. Like, my dad did illustration, but he didn't do comics. So when I see, like, a word balloon, and he didn't do that stuff in front of me, so I could ask him questions, but I had to know what questions to ask. And a lot of people don't even have access to that. So they might think you just freehand every word balloon, and like I always have or something, And when they see that there's that tool, like it can help them maybe figure out. I don't know. I think there's there's something to be learned there, whether or not like you decide to use it. I mean, like you can. I mean, do you like other people's comics that like are like? Do you sometimes look at people's stuff and be like, I wish I were doing word balloons like that, like more amorphous or something? I don't know.
No.
Yeah. So
there are people who, there are a lot of people I look at and think, oh, I love the way that drawing is. And I may try to, I don't know, make more linear work or something, depending on what I'm responding to. But I don't know that there's anyone that I look at and think, oh, I wish I could do word balloons like that. Yeah. If I want to do word balloons that way, I'll just try to do them,
Yeah. Well, I guess, that's a little specific.
I have no problem with stealing or appropriating or trying something different. And I've done a lot of, over the course of making comics, like I always try different things.
Yeah.
So I've done different styles of whatever the element you want to talk about is. This is kind of, at this point, something of a default.
Yeah, I was thinking about how, a lot more than in prose writing, the form that you decide with before you start making a comic, like affects the story and the narrative. Just like how many pages it will be. Will it be color? Like, what is the vague style? Are things that you don't have to decide when you're just making a story with words. Or like how much you want something to cost, or like, because then that affects page number and color and like what the kind of story will end up being.
Yeah, it's a shame that that's true.
The price affects the output.
Well, just that price is a consideration at some point.
Yeah, like this, I guess, some people have to, like, if you do the webcomic thing or whatever, or like the more you can sell, the cheaper it can be, kind of.
Right. I did a mini comic for a Christmas card this year, and the prices for me to produce it were terrible.
Huh.
And it's just a couple of things, it's a little bit of not planning ahead and not planning well, and like a half an inch difference is the difference between putting two comics on one copy.
Yeah.
Which would literally cut your cost in half. So, that can be.
Oh man, during the top of the line, I got the wrong size envelopes like 2 months in a row. They're just like an eighth of an inch too big, so they cost 70 cents more per 250 subscribers. And 70 cents times 250 is a big chunk of money 2 months in a row.
Yes, it is.
It's like, the comic itself cost me like 45 cents to make. And then the shipping was, you know, a dollar, whatever, $1.40. And like that's what I'm thinking about, like with Cloudtown, like the next project where I'm like handwriting the book is like, okay, I know when I did top of the line, issue 8 sold best, and I think continues to sell best on Birdcage Bottom Books.
That's strange.
It's the one that is silkscreen covered, limited edition, and a whole lot more. It's like $8 an issue instead of $2.99. You know,
It's interesting that the more expensive item sells the most, right?
yeah,
Because everybody's constant, like I know so many people that try to price stuff based on what they think something should cost as opposed to it cost this much to produce, so I have to sell it for this much. And it's counterintuitive. Everybody thinks the cheaper the item is, the more you'll sell of it, and that's just not, there's no evidence to back that up.
Yeah, not in my experience either. Yeah, I feel like what I would do is I'm gonna have each issue of this book have like a hand printed cover. I'm gonna number them and sign them. It'll be like limited edition, hopefully like 300 to 500. If people like back the Kickstarter, they'll get them for like $5 a copy in the mail. And then if they don't, then it'll be like $8 in the store or whatever. And I think that seems like, from what happened with my last comic, the most likely way for me to.
I use this all the time. This is my favorite tool.
What does it do? What's the
It's a straight
part?
edge.
What are these?
I have no idea. You know what I think these are? These are doors, because this is an architectural drawing thing.
Oh.
And I think these are door, like if you're going to draw a door on a floor plan.
Do you mostly use the circles and
I barely use the circles, but I just use it as a straight edge, but I just like how it feels. Like it fits well.
Looks kind of clean.
Maybe.
Huh. I was wondering if you have like tons of hexagons in your work that I hadn't been noticing until then.
I should. Yeah, I'm really meticulous with kind of measuring out pages and things. Mm-hmm. And for a while, what I would do is basically draw center points the way, like I put guides in Photoshop, you know, whenever I'm setting up a file in Photoshop, I'll have like a horizontal and vertical center.
Yeah.
And I just got used to working that way so much that I would then always draw it. So I was like drawing the guidelines that I would have in Photoshop. I would draw on my page, like as soon as I take my page down. It's so ridiculous.
What do you think that does for the work or whatever?
I don't know. I don't know if it does anything for the work itself.
Just for you?
Yeah. It's I think it's a way for me to not focus too much on one part of the page. You know what I mean? It feels like weirdly out of balance.
Also, maybe it just marks up the page right away.
Could be. Yeah, there's something to be said for that, I think.
Yeah, I feel like...
Now I've made blue lines. So I have an 11 by 17 blue line template.
Uh-huh.
And then I print out that template for my roughs.
Okay.
So like my roughs have a lot of stuff on them. There are so many lines on my roughs that I probably can't even tell you what all of them are.
They bleed can you tell me some of them?
Yeah. So I have a trim line,
yeah.
And this is where the page will be trimmed.
Yeah.
I have a bleed line, which is if it's a full page bleed, you have to draw beyond the trim line. Then I have like a margin guide, and the margin's based on like 3/8 and 5/8 inches or something. I can't remember what the margins are based on, but it creates like a 2x3 rectangle in the middle of the page then if you're using the margins that I have set up. And then I have centers found. You know how Frank does like page architecture?
Yeah.
He came over pretty early on and we went through and marked up a few different pages with some different centers and various lines. So I have some of those.
Yeah.
I have like a 6-panel grid built and a 9-panel grid built.
And then whether or not you're using them, they'll just be kind of under your sketches? Or?
Yep, they're all there. It's nuts looking. There's so many lines on it, but I know what some of them are.
So you have just a stack of like 11 by 17 printed out? Like
no, I print one whenever I'm ready to draw it. So I start with an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and I just do really loose page layouts on that. And they're just like drawings, you know, like they're not even in a page necessarily. It'll just be like setting up a scene or something like that, you know, to create the 3D space. And then once I feel like I have the page that I want worked out in that little indecipherable scribbles, then I print out my 11 by 17 and I transfer it to that. Sometimes I draw on that a few times, just depends how the drawing works. Maybe we'll show a few of those.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. It's already been 45 minutes, so.
Oh shit, we're almost done. I didn't even gotten on a brush.
Yeah, well, it takes time, That's the other thing I've realized while doing these. Like, I've only done 3. Drawing for an hour is really not a lot of time to draw.
No, I feel terrible that this is taking so long.
But like, that's usually you're not answerable to anyone. So you're here 12 hours in a day. I remember someone who will not be named was drawing comics at our house and was like staying over, and they came down and they're like, "Ooh, drawn for like 2, maybe 3 hours." And like me and Nate and like I forget who else was there. We all just kind of look at each other and like look back at them and like are kind of gritting our teeth.
That's funny.
Just like congratulating themselves. It's just fine, like everyone does stuff different, I don't know why it's offensive to those of us that were present. There's really no need for it, but it's just like
I started doing yoga recently because of like the sitting.
Yeah.
Because normally I run, but I don't like to run whenever it starts to get cold, or at least I don't run as consistently. I found yoga to be pretty helpful.
Yeah, I've been wanting to start yoga pretty badly.
Because that was one of the scariest parts. Whenever I used to do the ballpoint pen drawings all the time, I would have like 4 or 5 hours would go by and I wouldn't move, and
Yeah.
like it's really unhealthy. So
Jess Heverly asked if we can make it 2 hours.
I'm willing to draw this drawing.
Okay, yeah, I would draw the rest of this comic. I don't care. But we should, for those people tuning in, maybe like show them some stuff.
Yeah,
like,
we can take a break.
Yeah, whenever you're
like
in
a
the
minute.
spot.
See, normally I would use a French curve for all of these curves.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing that. Because everybody's in a hurry.
Yeah, and you go and you let stuff overlap and then you go tweak it in post or whatever?
These are going to be colored in black.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, so if I know that ahead of time, then I can be sloppier on one side of the line.
Makes sense.
And probably I'll probably end up redrawing this page.
How many pages do you think you redraw?
I don't know. I don't want to redraw any.
Yeah.
So I'll try to redraw as few as I can. But we'll see. Probably what will happen is there's a dog in this story, and that dog continues to evolve. So I'm probably going to have to redraw the dog a few times somewhere, depending on which version I decide is the one I want to keep. But that may not require redrawing a page. It'll just be like swap out the character on this page or that page if he looks wrong.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like my next serialized thing, I might do 2 projects at once, and they have a Kickstarter that's like every other month you could get Cloud Town, serialized novel, or every other month you could get Lesser Known Predators, which is like it's going to be a series of newsletters basically. So it'll just be 8.5 by 11 printed stories in an envelope for you, and then you could order both, or you could just order one, and then that'll give me like maybe a break from each other project. I can get some distance. Thinking.
It'd be good if it was just 8.5 by 11 photocopied from a production standpoint. Like that would save you some, and the person that gets that in the mail would probably be pretty happy with it.
What do you mean, like photocopied? Or just 8.5? That's what I'm planning, just like, instead of printing them.
Do you mean folded in half and saddle stitch? I
No,
thought you
no,
meant
no,
just like
I
a piece of 8.5 by 11
Yeah.
photo. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
piece of 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, just straight out of the printer.
I made so many zines this year, and like by the end, that was my whole thing. Is like I need to make stuff that doesn't need trim, doesn't need folded 3 times.
Yeah. I still need to like stuff because I would use a standard mailing envelope, so it'd still be like, you know, folded 3 times, unfortunately. But
all right, want me to pull out some pages or something?
yeah, I'd love to see some. Be awesome.
I hate this one character's hair, and I'm not sure how to fix it.
It's good, different hair. What do you hate about it?
It looks like that girl from some TV show. I have no idea which one.
Which one? Which girl is it? Is like a pigtail?
It's the one with the pigtails. It's like one of those crime shows. It looks like.
Give her a top knot. All the kids got top knots these days.
Is that right?
Well, it was like for a long time, girls in the West Coast only did, I think, and then they kind of traveled over here. But yeah, young girls still have top knots when they used to never. It used to be like a librarian kind of old lady concept. But yeah, it's like hip.
I can't find any of these things that I thought would be perfect to showcase. What the hell?
Oh yeah, while we're showcasing stuff, I just did a reprint of a film about Billy. So this is my first novel, but I sold out, so reprinted. Hybrid novel, available for sale. Actually, the last handful of copies of the first printing are still available through Birdcage Bottom Books. Pages for the bottoms of your cages. I really like that tagline.
Is that yours or theirs?
It's theirs, yeah. I wish like I could only do business with people that are like at least a little self-deprecating about the quality of this stuff. But that's not even about quality. It's about just disposability, which I think is different.
All right, see if this shows up. So this is one I posted online already, so it's not really too exciting, but like that would be, oh, you know what? Here, you can hold that. I'm probably not going to find what I was looking for. I was going to try to pull out the rough, that, you know, like the first step on that page, but I don't think I'm going to be able to find something like that.
Oh, nice. This is her dumpstering donuts.
Yeah. I should have organized better. So that's like the second step, right? Like that pencil page that you see is like the second step.
Man. Seeing this stuff makes me want to just, I feel like I've yet to just try to make even a short story as clean as I possibly can. I've been trying to like, you know, get together expressiveness and stuff, but like, I think that would be a really good thing for me to exercise. I mean, not that this stuff is like, you know, unexpressive for sure. It's like,
I don't know
going on.
What being super clean gets you.
I don't know, but I think I would like to know what it would get me, because it would get me something, I suspect. My stuff would look
I guess
different.
it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Try.
I would be shocked if it hurt.
This is what my this is how I start out. Like these are my rough page layouts. You know, like this would be a rough page layout.
Okay.
Unfortunately, all the other ones I put away. But that one starts that way, and you can see that very tiny
She's
little...
slapping a heroin needle out of his mouth?
Yeah.
Oh, he's going fishing. I thought he was a junkie dog.
No, he was digging around in the trash, and that's what he came up with. So this is a page. It's page 15, and then I go to that step.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll show up. It's a little bit light. And you can see like some of the...
oh, yeah.
Like
you're
the
doing
markings.
Yeah.
Right. So I have like all sorts of different lines that indicate everything.
Have these actually, like the Frankie circles, else I'll call them, like have they been affecting the way you draw or whatever? Or are they just there?
They affect things occasionally, not all the time. Like you'll notice here, these figures fit perfectly in there.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's something very effective, and sometimes it's something that I'm not thinking about. But if I'm like trying to place figures somewhere, you know, that might be a reference. That might be the thing that like pushes me in one direction or another. And then like that's the final page. Cool. So once I get to this stage and I kind of like it, I light box it.
Do you do like, are you taking photos of like messed up stoops and stuff sometimes? Or like, are you thinking about that when you're walking around?
I'm setting Street Angel in like Pittsburgh in terms of architecture, but I also reference places like Baltimore and stuff. But I used to, like, when I first moved here, maybe like 14 years ago, I would go around in the morning, like Saturday mornings, and I'd just take photographs. I had like a shoebox full of like old beat up,
like real photos.
Alleys and stuff like that. And I haven't looked at them in a long time, but that's what I'm planning to use as references for this.
Cool. That's awesome because it's older Pittsburgh too.
It's not that much older.
It's probably makes a difference, don't you think?
Maybe.
I mean, I was just gone 2 months, and there's like a new parking lot, and like street lights are different. I know, it's like little stuff, but it's like, lampposts are like LEDs now, and they're square.
Put that one in too. So I'll go through and I'll make notes like that for future reference. So that one's like changing her eyes instead of like looking off that way. I'm going to have them looking directly at the dog in the next panel.
Huh.
But I think it makes it flow better, and I think it makes more sense. But it's one of those things like it's a little detail that I notice after it's done. Yeah. So I just use a Post-it note and I'll catch it either digitally or I'll, if it needs redrawn, I'll redraw something. Like I have word balloons that get moved around and things.
There's a lot of police in this, compared to the first tornado had. I feel like it was always ninjas and never any police presence.
There's some police in the first one. Okay. Issue 1, there's police, but yeah. And the police aren't really in this one too much, just these one pages. Scene.
Yeah. Cool.
This is my Christmas comic. And I drew it all in a week.
How many pages is it?
It's 26, but it's mini comic, so it's not like 26 of a full-size comic.
But it's still 26 11 by 17 sheets of paper.
Mm-mm.
Oh, no.
You'll see. So that's one page.
Yeah.
But this is a 2-page spread.
Oh, okay.
And that's 2-page spread.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of pages like that. What's this haircut you said? A top knot?
Top knot, yeah.
Let's see what that looks like. This is what you're seeing on your travels?
No, it's just one of the lady characters in my story has a top knot. And I mean, a lot of people I know have top knots. Usually,
so it's just
and a lot of times
it's
just basically it's less than a bun because it's easier to put it up. You just put your hair in a ponytail folded in half, basically on top of your head.
All right.
Like Sarah LaFonte has one all the time. It's like an easy to draw girl haircut that's not used a lot yet in the youth comics. I mean, you know what? I think wait, someone has it. Katie Skelly's got to have a top knot. I think in her latest comic, one of the main characters has one of the motorcycle ladies.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a pinup. I did a fan art for her, and it had. So I had to draw the top knot.
Oh yeah, so this was one of the pencils that I put up.
Yeah, see, this is designed to be a digital layout, which would just be like a vertical scroll.
Yeah.
So I eliminated backgrounds with the idea that you would read through that very quickly.
Yeah.
There's nothing to slow it down except for the text in, which kind of nullifies the speed, I suppose. Yeah, there's no real order. They're getting transferred to the flat files very soon.
Where are your flat files?
Downstairs. I got flat files last year, and they like changed my life. They've started my whole ordering everything, because this used to be such chaos. Like a year ago, this room was just books floor to ceiling. And loose paper everywhere. Sometimes I ink with rapidographs.
Yeah. Why you frown about that? Because you're about to do it now.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? So does Theo. That's everything he does. He inks with rapidographs.
He draws with rapidographs?
Yeah, everything. He used to be doing, he used to use the microns, I think, but he uses tiny rapidograph for everything now. And except he uses markers for color sometimes. And then I think he was doing watercolor, but he switched to markers lately. Which I think makes tons of sense for him, you know?
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, he has this really thin line, and there's something like I feel like rapidographs, there's something, because they're finicky, there's something like meditative about them. You need to be paying attention to them, and it becomes like I don't know. I think the thing is that makes sense about rapidographs for Theo is mostly the smallness of the line. And like this is, I'm like, what do I actually know? But I kind of feel like, and I think he's even maybe said this, that like the process of drawing and becoming into this like meditative state really affects the story and what he's drawing, and it's part of like getting into that kind of abstract internal world or whatever.
Yeah, that seems to make a lot of sense with his work. I think I've heard him talk about some of that.
He's like interested in mysticism, and then he like all his big black spaces he even like, you know, colors in with the rapidograph. I think
It makes for interesting looking originals, but
I mean,
it's a slow process.
It is a slow process, yeah. And it's interesting, like hearing him give me time-saving tips, like because he's a father and is not in the studio very often, all the time.
How often is he in the studio?
Recently, he hadn't been in there like hardly at all, really. But things were, I mean, the second baby is relatively newborn, I think. And when I was hanging out with him, his wife had gotten a fever or something, and so he called away. Whatever. But yeah, I think, you know, not on a daily basis. He hadn't been in there for a couple of weeks, I think. Which is what it is.
I was looking at, you know, all those artist editions.
Of what? Of just anything?
IDW publishes these books that are called like artist editions, but they're comic book originals reproduced at actual size and like 4-color scans in black and white, you know, the drawings.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And there's one with David Mazzucchelli's Daredevil story that he did with Frank Miller. His black and white art, like there must be 50 textures that he evokes with different things, like with hatching and dry brush and all this different stuff. And his black and white work, like it's stunning, you know. It almost defies, like, why would you do that considering how that stuff was reproduced back then?
Yeah.
But I was just looking at it not too long ago, and it was like, yeah, very informative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to start coloring this stuff at some point.
Yeah.
And that's been like, I have no idea how that's going to go.
Yeah.
You know, I have ideas for it, but practically speaking, like most of what I do is in black and white.
Yeah. Are you going to be doing digital coloring, you suspect?
Yes, I'm sure I'll do a lot of digital coloring. It may not be the only thing that I do.
Yeah.
Because I think coloring and drawing may change a lot from scene to scene, to try to make the scenes distinguished from one another and, for various effects. So I wouldn't rule out coloring besides digital, but I just don't know yet.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna do watercolor for a while because it's been just exciting for me. Also, it's a weird portable thing the way I'm doing it, which is fun because I'm doing a very sloppy thing too. And also after seeing it's like seeing the wrenchies basically, seeing feral stuff. It's nice to see something that I didn't know where I wanted. Like I was trying to go with my watercolor stuff, and then I saw his stuff, and I was like, well, this is clearly should have already been an influence of mine. Now I'm gonna try to, figure out what that means. But it's nice to see an example of what you weren't sure you wanted it to look like, but that's totally what I wanted some top of the line to look like.
Yeah, feral stuff's really strong.
Yeah.
I have a very cheap set of watercolors, like the kind you would get at a drugstore or something, like a children's thing.
Yeah.
And I don't love the way they work. I would like to find some kind of color medium to use besides digital, but I haven't found one I like. I just bought a bunch of markers for a different job, but I'm thinking that might lead to something.
Yeah. For a second, I was fiddling around with using, injecting different colors in brush pens, just because I like things being refillable, basically. And that seemed okay, but basically, I don't own enough brush pens. I need to just drop some cash.
Yeah, you would need a lot of them if that's what you were using for all of your color.
Yeah, it would depend if you were doing a 2-color story, But at this point, it's I don't know why I would, because I don't have access to anything that would make it cheaper to be 2 colors. And it seems, I know effect is important, but it would feel weird to be printing at a color printer for just 2 colors for me for some reason.
Yeah, if you had a Riso or something. But the weird thing with using a Riso for 2-color is you're not creating 2-color artwork in the original artwork, so you have to think in the separations.
Yeah.
I did a show in Wichita.
Where is Wichita? Kansas?
Kansas. I did 3 shows in November for no reason at all. It seemed like each show that I would do too, everybody's like, is this your last show of the year? It's 2 more this month. But Wichita was pretty cool. I met a bunch of people from Kansas City, and it's a whole different group of artists than what I'm used to seeing, because usually I do shows that are within driving distance of here, so you see the same people more or less. And a number of the guys that I met there, one guy does Moon Knight for Marvel, and someone else has an image book that he draws, and they both work digitally, all digital. It's so fast,
Yeah. I was thinking about that because you could do your thumbnails, to be your pencils to be or whatever.
Scotty Young. Do you know Scotty Young?
No.
He does. He did all those Oz books for Marvel, and then he's recently been doing Rocket Raccoon.
Okay.
So, like, you know, he's like a big Marvel guy, and I've known him for a few years, and he says that he does his layouts digitally and then prints the layouts out.
Yeah.
Which I like because I like doing, you know, this part. So it would be essentially that would replace my light boxing.
Right. You know, that's what Dave Watcher does, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I saw it at a I forgot I had met him, and then I re-met him, and then I remembered. But yeah,
I feel like I should know what he does.
He did an Out of the Gutter back in the day at the library, and he does it. He draws it digitally, prints it in non-reproducible blue, inks, scans, and then colors it digitally.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a common method these days. I don't know. I think I'm going towards, like, I don't know, the Cloud Town anyway, like that aesthetic is like, I want it to kind of retain like the like messy zine like style that I like a lot, and like have smudges and the pencil's not erased all the way and stuff, but it still be like kind of a big, long, intense, like sci-fi pulpy story, which I think, you know, zines don't have a tradition of doing. You know?
Is that true?
I think that's what I think. Someone could prove me wrong.
I know so little about zines. We group everything into zines, but if you think about like the variety of genre and style and approach and pricing and or just like everything,
1940s sci-fi fanzines,
right? Like zines could not be more diverse. Right. They just get grouped as like zines.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like there's and also like, because I don't know, there's some weird cult of the zine. Like I've had conversations where it ended up me talking to these people, and we kept being invited to do like zine this or zine that, and like at the end of the day I was like, well, the truth is, like, I don't care about zines like as an entity. Like I care about content. I like some aesthetics that I learned from zines. Like there are certain zines which I love, but it's like it's not like I love all zines. Like I like comics, but I don't love all comics, and it becomes like so much about supporting the format sometimes with pro zine stuff that it's confusing to me sometimes. Because I don't know, I like story. I don't necessarily like particularly care that it's stapled. I like not having to care whether it's stapled if it's good, you know?
What do you mean if it's stapled?
Well, like that's kind of where I feel like there's like the hand stapled, is why zines again aren't all stapled, but I feel like that's a common format line distinction. If you're stapling it yourself, doing saddle stitch stuff, that's like what makes it a zine as opposed to something else.
You think?
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't think too much about any of these kinds. You know, like that doesn't.
It comes up in conversation for me a lot. Like that's the thing, is like I don't either, but I have to answer these questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes to reporters. Like I got interviewed about zines by, you know, Forbes magazine, and I have to, like, you know, illustrate my opinion. And like I have a lot of opinions about zines, but defining them still isn't easy. Yeah.
This is going to be a street gang in Street Angels world, and it's all these characters that have some version of Mary in their name. And they're sort of like an old 90s superhero team where you have like the one big muscular character, and like somebody's an expert at bombs or something, or computer hacking.
Nice.
Everybody has their little specialty.
Have you read the new Dash Shaw book?
Doctors?
I don't know. I haven't read it. I don't even know what it's called yet. But I just heard people say how good it was. And that
Yeah, I
should read
talked
it.
to Bill about it the other day. I haven't read it yet, but I'd like to. It's kind of on my list.
Yeah.
He does. I find him really interesting in terms of color. You know, like color is this thing that I'm looking at a lot. It's real funny. Mostly what I've been looking at lately are number one issues of stuff. And then like once I'm done with issue one, I plan to start looking at number two issues of stuff,
Okay.
which I think is going to fall apart soon. Right. Exactly why. But I'm also looking at a lot of color because color is the thing that's, you know, like the next on my list.
Could you give me some recommendations? Number ones that you thought like were really good number ones.
I don't know if anything has stood out. Like all of them are kind of interesting to me because I don't read a lot of comics. So lately I've been making myself.
Yeah.
And I certainly haven't read very many what would be like mainstream, you know, like Wednesday comics.
Yeah.
So I've been really impressed with almost everything, sort of, but mostly because I have low expectations. Trying to think. I give them to Brian then also. I just gave him a batch.
I think of like, I know off the top of my head when I think of a really good like introduction of a main character early on is totally Pirates of the Caribbean. Have you seen the first Pirates of the Caribbean?
Nope.
It's a really good introduction of Johnny Depp's character. He's like you see him close up, like in a crow's nest, looking out into the sea, and then it pans out, and he's a boat that's sinking, and he goes down and he pails it out, and it's this little shitty boat, and then he goes back up, and his boat sinks right onto harbor, and he just like steps off onto the dock and like strolls up. And it's just like, it says a lot in a really little time.
Yeah, I'm always impressed by kind of economy.
Yeah. I'm kind of really interested in the Pirates of the Caribbean series because like the first one is really brilliant and it's a screenplay based off of an amusement park ride, right? So that's fine. And then the second one is terrible. It's like really, really very bad. And then I don't know what the third one's like. I'm not even sure if I watched it, but the fourth one totally picked up the pieces and was really good again.
I didn't even realize there were 4 of those.
There's so many. I can't believe they got that far. Yeah. I think it's just Johnny Depp makes funny faces and is very charming and looks good with gold teeth, you know? And it's like, so they got through the dry spells like that, maybe. Or maybe other people like the second and third ones. I don't know. There's no accounting for taste, which is hard to think about when you're trying to make stuff people will like.
Yeah, quality is not a marketable commodity. If there is no agreed upon standard for what constitutes quality, and people get sidetracked with that, and it's just a useless waste of energy.
So what do you try to do? You just try to make something you would like? Is that?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, like I have an idea in my head of what I think of as good comics or comics that don't exist that I wish existed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You just can't use it as a sales mechanism. Like it could be the best comic in the world, but you can't. It just isn't. Like that's one of the most subjective quality. You know, quality is the most subjective element.
One thing that I was saying for a while, and I think is kind of true maybe, is like when I was handed my first zine, that zine was the best piece of writing in the world to me at that moment, right? And like, I like the idea of making stuff that could be for someone the best thing in the world for a certain moment, you know?
Yeah, I thought about at one point doing something where I would try to put together all of basically everything that was ever my favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could group it as like comics or movies or books or anything. I'd like to do it for comics. I think that would be really interesting. Because there are comics that I can remember sitting around reading and thinking like, this is the best comic I've ever read. Yeah. And I want to have those. Like I think about like how to shelf things all the time. And I think that would be a cool way to shelf things up here.
Sounds good, yeah.
Plus it's interesting to see like what would have been, you know, like things that were at one point my favorite comic, like now I'm half embarrassed by.
Yeah.
And it would be cool to see all that, I think, next to each other.
Yeah, see a timeline or whatever. It'd be cool to do pinups of everything that you thought was the coolest thing. But that's just more stuff to do.
Yeah.
Like I had this question because I was, I gave that like lecture about the business of zine making to someone, like this class, and someone like was asking me, like I think all my students are super brilliant, but like I know I'm like kind of in too close, and I can't make a subjective opinion. Like
Wait, this is you or somebody
else asking me that.
Okay.
And it's like, am I like encouraging them just to like lead them to nowhere? Like, am I, giving them false hopes or something? And I was like, I don't think that matters. Like, I don't know. Like, kind of the answer is yes, no matter what, and no matter what. Because it's not like writing and doing zines and comics is like likely to turn into a career necessarily, but it's also totally not impossible. And whether or not it does, I don't think has to do with some kind of vague concept of talent that they may or may not have, according to me.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there.
Right? There's a lot going on.
Because I think for the most part, you have no impact on anybody's life whatsoever. But if you look back on your life, there have been like probably a couple of people who did have an impact.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can know that you're that person in someone's life.
Right.
So in a way, whatever you say to them doesn't matter at all 99% of the time.
Yeah.
You just never know.
But also, I think arguably it doesn't hurt to be thoughtful in general when you're.
Oh, sure. But it's a different reason for doing it. It's not because you're changing someone's life. Like, I think that's a narcissistic way to, approach giving somebody feedback.
Yeah, that's true.
Because people do what they're going to do anyway. Again, 90% of the time. Like every now and then, something amazing will happen to you. But I think it's usually you're the person it's happening to, as opposed to you're the person that's delivering that special moment for someone.
Well, yeah, I guess, but like,
I used to play football, and I was really into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always think like, the key was to get everybody to sort of like go as hard as they could each play, or at least at once, like if you did it on one play. And you just never know which play is going to be like a game-winning type play, like the kind of thing that changes things.
Uh-huh.
So you almost have to just approach each one that way for a best case scenario, because you don't have the control beforehand to know this is the one where we all have to try.
Yeah. So you're saying that every once in a while, because every once in a while you do affect other people's lives.
Yeah, but I don't think you have any idea when that is.
Yeah, right. It could be at the best or worst times. So you just have to be as good as possible, as often as possible. Oh, Jess also said she had a recommendation of Dr. P.H. Martin's watercolors, said that they had good pigment for her.
I use Dr. P.H. Martin ink.
Mm-hmm.
Giant bottles of it. I buy them from this place in Tampa that's so like ridiculous that I have to call them whenever I want them.
Awesome.
Okay, I misuse the bottle. Yeah.
Huh. I have this Chinese black ink that I really liked because it was
waterproof.
It's not, and then I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really fun until I started using color. Because I would smear it on purpose and stuff, and it was really dry and thick, and it had just a weird like line.
I'm so nervous to be drawing with this. Normally I have that taped to the drawing table.
Yeah, you should lift it up.
I wonder what Jessica's painting.
Yeah, I wonder. I hope she scans it and sends it to me. I'll put it online. I also have a drawing someone did to put up on Instagram from the Theo time. So I'm going to put that
That's
up.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
They were like drawing along to you guys.
Yeah, I didn't even realize people were going to do that, so I tried to encourage it this time. Seems nice.
Yeah, it'd be nice if drawing were a little bit more communal than mine usually is.
I think it's maybe potentially, I've never been on the other side of the thing, but it could be nicer for it to be like that borderline communal where you can just turn it down and like you don't have to feel pressure and you're in your own space,
Yeah. All I do is listen to podcasts.
I just started re-listening to Inkstones. It's been a really long time. But now like they're driving around and Brandon Graham's in it.
Yeah.
And he is so funny and charming that it's like, it's a different kind of podcast.
Yeah, I've liked these ones where they go on the road. I think that it's so much easier to talk to somebody in person than over the phone.
Yeah.
And I think it's really made that I've enjoyed stuff a lot more whenever they've been on the road like this.
I listened to the SPX one in the airport because I had downloaded it ahead of time, so I had something to listen to. And it's like it's a panel discussion with like DeForge, Simon Hanselman, Ben Graham, somebody else. But like I'm pretty sure
Robin, right?
Yeah, Robin's there. There's another person. But I'm pretty sure no like information was conveyed in the 58 minutes, and I was laughing out loud the whole time because it was just a bunch of weird comic dudes being like funny to each other. I had a great time. Simon Hanselman comes in like 30 minutes late and like interrupts everything, and everyone's having a good time. Oh, I've got an attachment. What she's working on.
She must have heard us talking about her.
Yeah. There it is.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
She is working along. That's cool. I don't think I'm really going to finish this. So if you're done or at a stopping point, we can stop whenever you're ready.
Right, yeah. I have no opinion. This is the sub project that I'm keeping in this envelope, which is just going to be like a quarter-sized, really sloppy zine. Just like actually auto-bio on the road zine, which...
That's a good idea to do.
Yeah, like I was kind of really against it, and then I was like, why am I fighting this so hard?
Yeah, why would you?
I don't know. Because there's a lot of auto-bio zines, and you know what? They're usually good, so I don't know why I was...
Perzine, right?
What?
Perzine.
I don't know that one.
You don't know that one? PER zine? It's like a personal zine.
Huh. That's just the term for personal zines?
Okay. Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
This one on the left is a robot.
This is like the dark eyes. Nice. Yeah, this part of the personal zine is, I put some pages of Fred of it, so this can be the middle spread, but it's just about being in Portland, and this dude is driving by in like this huge white SUV with like the bass rattling the windows, and it's like this really tough looking dude.
Was he coming to the comic book show?
Nah, it was in Portland, so there's no comic book show. Well, I guess there were some, but I didn't go to them.
I feel like there were like 3 there every weekend.
There were a lot of things going on. John Porcelino had a film there. Eddie had a talk at a bookshop. But whatever, I didn't get to them. But the dude was blasting Grimes on. Do you know Grimes?
Mm-hmm.
It's like this like indie lady. It's really dreamy, beautiful music, but it's like not the kind of thing you would imagine a tough guy.
It's funny.
Playing except
his little brother or sister stole it.
Well, I told this to someone that this was an experience. They were like, "That is so Portland."
Oh, okay.
So, like, I don't know. That's what I'm doing. It's just a Portland joke. So I don't see if people like it. It also doesn't really. Yeah, it's so weird. It's like, yeah, people always asking me like how I like. Again, it's like how do you know when you're doing something that people will like? It's like you just don't.
Right. I had somebody. I did an interview yesterday, and that came up, and that's exactly like you have no idea.
Yeah, it's like I was like think about like the stuff you like. Like, I mean, like if 1% of the human population liked your stuff, that would be an insanely huge number, and you could show it. Then you could show it to like 200 people, and none of them happen to be those 2 people that would be in that representative percentage. You know, like I don't know, man. And now I'm like here, I'm drawing this thing. I was like, I don't remember what kind of fire hydrants they have in Portland. Not that it matters, but like whoever's reading this Portland zine will know.
They'll be pissed.
They'll be like, we don't have streetlights like that.
There's some blog out there, and it's about fire hydrants and
Fire hydrants in
streetlights
Portland.
in Portland.
Well, because like
What?
they have like there's like the one that is in cartoons from the 40s and 50s that they still have in my hometown, and then there's like a boxier one that some places have, and then there's one that's just like a right angle and then kind of a Y with two pipes on the top. No, that's kind of what I put in there. No one's gonna recognize it as a fire hydrant if that's not what they have. It's fine. I just think it's a weird.
I bet most people couldn't identify the fire hydrants in their neighborhood.
That would be an interesting. That's probably a Facebook questionnaire.
No.
I've never taken a Facebook questionnaire in my entire life because I'm too freaked out about like giving people my data on purpose. Oh, if you're interested in listening to a story podcast, if you run out of stuff to listen to ever, my favorite one is called Adam's Motion in the Void.
Never heard of that.
It's really, really good. But I mean, it's also just it's a fictional narrative, so it's a matter of taste. It's like kind of my favorite. When I was listening to it, it was my favorite thing.
I have to keep that one in mind.
If you forget, just email me like, what was the thing? And I will remember. I won't know.
Lex was telling me about one. It's this comedian. I want to say, I think her last name's Lapkus. But her podcast is like whoever the guest is basically interviewing her. So it's like something with her is like the name of the show. That's great. I don't even know her name, but she's essentially, it's like she's guesting on a show, and then the guest for her show is the host and kind of creates like an imaginary show, and then she's the guest.
Huh.
I think it's a cool idea, but I haven't listened to it yet. I think Paul F. Tompkins is the host on one. I'm sure he's probably really good. It's funny to think of like how much of a gimmick everybody needs now for their podcasts.
Right.
And I totally understand why, but
yeah, it's a niche market or whatever. Actually, the other thing I have to do tonight before going to bed is trying to fix the heat on the first floor of my house.
oh man.
Yeah, I know it's wrong. It's just this German pump keeps shorting out and blowing this fuse. Just because like the clips that hold the wires are weird. They like seem very convenient, but because they don't work right, they're the opposite. So I had bought like 30 fuses because they cost 2 cents a piece, but shipping was like $12.
Right.
So I, did that, which actually I think maybe is part of one of the reasons Top of Line 8 might sell better, because people don't want to pay for like $3 shipping if it costs $3 for the comic. But if it costs $8 for the comic, they might feel more comfortable paying the shipping. I don't know if that's true. So that's something Bill brought up as a possible reason. Yeah, but I was just blowing through them so fast. I got a continuity tester, so I can fidget with that. So I don't have to. I can figure out whether or not it's successful before watching the fuse blow up.
Man, I hate like house maintenance stuff.
Yeah, me too. Can't wait.
Everything just takes longer.
Right?
You
Yeah,
know?
everything takes
Just
forever.
Everything takes longer.
It was like, yeah. Do you ever give yourself a maximum pages you're allowed to redraw?
No.
I remember when I first finished a film about Billy, I'd redrawn every page at least once, but I was also learning to draw comics for the first time, basically. And like, you know, I like that book fine, but I do think that, you know, the illustration isn't as strong as it, you know, I am now, which makes sense. But when I was completely done, I was like, okay, I'm going to go back and pick the 3 pages that I just can't stand.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went
I always
through
think
all
that's a good idea.
and did that. Yeah, it was good for me. Got some tweets. Maybe they're about us. Phil Dokes. Sounds good now. Is your audio there? I think these are really old. I feel like I'm going to have to figure out a different way for the tweeting.
It's strange that tweeting would be behind.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's my wording.
What time is it?
It's 8:36. You want to close up? Sorry, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to show you in the studio real quick. I mean, we can keep drawing. They can keep drawing.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
How do you do a studio? Do you just carry that thing around?
I've never done it before. So
Oh.
I'm just going to sit here and kind of pivot.
Oh, this is all messy.
Well, that's my stuff. Sorry.
Windows.
So that's where you guys work on the Google Doc together. It's your big scanner. There's your 3D glasses from when you were drawing.
This is where my
3D.
cat lays.
Well, you have another cat bed over here too.
Yeah, it lays over there too. But I was so happy because I trained it to lay up here. So like whenever I'm coloring or doing kind of work on the computer, I usually have a cat laying there, which is good.
It's your book collection. You got a Farrell original up there, right? On the right, is that him?
3 Farrell originals.
Oh, those are all Farrell.
Yeah.
And then did Farrell also do this Black Velvet painting?
And that's actually from my father-in-law.
Huh. I was wondering about that. But what we got in here? Well, I'm knocking stuff over. I'm making a mess of your studio. Hey, you want to hold this?
Sure.
Point it to stuff if you want.
While I point it out. I always worry because whenever I do student conferences, this is like the camera's on my computer, so
Yeah,
it's
so
facing that wall. And I always think like, oh, it's so inappropriate.
Creepy Professor Jim.
Let's see. We have this Stephen Platt poster from Wizard magazine, Prophet Era.
Well,
It's an inspiration, let's face it. Dustin Harbin print. I don't know if you can see that well. There you go. Miles Davis on the bike. Let's see. I'm probably making everybody seasick. This is Gary Panter doing a Jack Kirby. Oh, this is my worst. I'm the worst cameraman ever.
Also, it's not designed for that. Most cameramen have a steady cam and a much heavier, bigger one.
This was when Kirby died. That was what Gary Panter did in the New Yorker.
Mm.
So it's like a bunch of Gary Panter or Jack Kirby tropes and things. It's really cool. And Jamie Tanner. We traded artwork for that. Like Jamie Tanner.
Sweet.
Did I just drop this whenever I'm done then?
Yeah, I'll just throw
Throw this in the fire.
Yeah, throw it on the fire.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, bye, guys.
No cap.